How do you want to look at this Rangers season? Glass half empty, 14th in the Eastern Conference, 11-11-2 with 24 points? Or glass half full maybe, just 2 points behind Boston for the final wildcard spot in the East? The East is so bunched up that just a couple of wins in a row can really move you close to the top. They're only 6 points behind Carolina for the tops in the Eastern Conference. It's a wild season. There's a long way to go. Hey, everybody. This is Todd Werwa, your host for Rangers Daily right here on YouTube. Please subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we post new episodes. Leave a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing. And please, as always, leave your comments, questions, thoughts, rants, whatever you want. I appreciate them all. I read them all. It's great having a conversation with all of you fans. So let's start with the tough stretch that the Rangers have coming up here. It's 7 games in 12 days, and the opponents aren't easy. Starting with tonight, Carolina. They're obviously the best points-wise in the Eastern Conference. Some numbers just show how good they are. They're third best in the NHL, goals for with 3.50 per game. They're number one in attempts. They're in shot attempts. They're number one in shots per game with 33.7. They have the 5th fewest allowed per game. They're third in high danger chances for, and they're number one overall in fewest attempts allowed. They can play. They've been doing the same thing for years and years under Rod Brind'Amour. They get constant shot attempts. They win the puck. They drive forward. They wear you out in your zone. They wear you out playing defense. It's a common formula. I've long said they seemingly play every regular season game like it's a playoff game, and then they don't have a higher gear to get to when it comes to playoff time. But they're off to a good start. Obviously, it'll be a tough one for the Rangers. Rangers lost back on November 4th, 3-0 to them already once this season. So you know what you're getting with the Carolina Hurricanes. They come at you. It's going to be tough to try and stay in that defensive structure and make it a low-event game because you know Carolina's going to push the attempts. But they have to hold the fort, have to stay as a group of 5, not let the chase for offense dominate what they're best at, which is low scoring, turning down chances that could be risky, sending transition the other way. It's two very conflicting styles in this game. We'll see which one wins. It didn't go so well for the Rangers the first time around, but maybe they'll have some momentum coming off of the St. Louis game. And here's where it's a difficult stretch. So here's how November ends and December starts. At Carolina, at Boston, then a back-to-back home for Tampa. Then home for Dallas, at Ottawa, who may have Brady Tkachuk back. And then a back-to-back to end it on December 6th and 7th. Home versus Colorado, home versus the Golden Knights. That's quite a stretch. 7 games in 12 days. Like I said, Colorado and the VGK are back-to-back. So, just when you get done with the speed of Colorado, then you've got to face Vegas. 7 straight games against teams that as of Tuesday morning were in a playoff position. I know it's early, but there's not a clunker in the bunch. So, I know Thanksgiving is usually a watermark for teams in playoff spots. Usually most of the teams that are in playoff spots at Thanksgiving stay in those spots. But with the condensed schedule this year and the mush that is the Eastern Conference, maybe it won't quite be such a bellwether this year. But this next stretch of games over the next 2 weeks, and it's already been a rough stretch with a lot of games packed into a few days, but this next stretch with 7 and 12 against all quality teams including some back-to-backs, it's going to tell a lot about what the Rangers should do for the rest of the season, what their goals are, what might open up on the trade front, what might, whether they're adding, whether they're subtracting, whatever it may be. These next 12 days going to be extremely crucial. And they'll start it with losing one of their best players so far. I know he hasn't played that much, Jonathan Quick, but every time he's played, he's been fantastic. Jonathan Quick goes on IR. Dylan Garand was brought up the day before, but you got a couple of back-to-backs in there, including coming up right after Thanksgiving with Boston and Tampa. Is Igor going to play both of those? Does that mean, if Igor plays Carolina, Boston, and Tampa, that's 3 and 4. What are you then doing for the next stretch? So, Dylan Garand may very well get a game here, and we don't know what he's got in his toolbox other than what we've seen in preseason. So that'll be interesting how Mike Sullivan handles the goaltenders. But again, it all happened. Matthew Robertson hit Michael Carcone in the Utah game right into Quickie and just sort of bent him wrong on his right leg. And he was skating, but he still isn't right. So he goes on IR. Plus on Tuesday, JT Miller and Will Borgen were both in non-contact jerseys. So don't know who'll be in, who'll be out. I believe Borgen comes off IR. I think he's eligible for tonight's game, but I don't know if he's coming off yet as of the time I'm recording this. So we'll see who they get back. It stinks to be shorthanded, especially going up against a real good team and in a stretch of going against real good teams. But we'll see where it lands. It means other people have to step up. We saw Gavrikov and Fox play great. We saw Trocheck score. Maybe we'll get some life out of Panarin and Lafreniere. We'll see. Maybe Berard will get a goal, which would be nice. See where he is with Laba and probably Sherry on that third line. So Quickie goes on IR, and that's some of the injury updates. The biggest news from Tuesday, and we'll see where it goes. The Rangers have finally given up on the Juuso Parssinen experiment, put him on waivers. So if somebody claims him, great. Thanks for coming to the organization. If no one claims him, he'll go down to Hartford. They can bury a large chunk of his cap money if he's in the AHL. So it won't, give them a little cap flexibility, which they certainly need. Listen, it's a Chris Drury mistake. It's at least, one of several of these contracts. They signed him in May to this 2-year deal after he really made no impact after he came over from Colorado. So they got stuck with this bad 2-year deal. No real reason for it. He hadn't proven himself yet. Initially, they thought he'd be the third line center, but Noah Laba beat him out. They moved him to wing. They tried him on the fourth line. He's not a fourth liner. He wasn't really playing great on the wing. He only played 14 of 24 games this year, so he was a healthy scratch quite often. It did seem like in Mike Sullivan's trust group, Juuso Parssinen was not in it. So we'll see what happens, whether he gets claimed or not, or whether there's some other corresponding move. But that's another one out the door. We've come to that sort of time of year, and I think that part of it, could they get something for Parssinen? We'll see. But we've come to that point of the year where teams are starting to think, all right, we're open for business. And it started with both Vancouver and Nashville. Vancouver's GM sent a Chris Drury-esque memo to the 31 other teams saying everyone is a potential will sell anybody except for Quinn Hughes. So we'll see what they have. Barry Trotz is livid at his players in Nashville, and pretty much everybody is up for grabs there. They don't have very many that you want. I can go through this for you here because I don't. Who would you want? It's got to likely be someone on the cheap, most likely. I mean, Elias Pettersson's in year 2 of an 8-year major deal. Brock Besser's in year 1 of a 7-year major deal. Connor Garland already has an extension for next year that kicks in. Maybe a Kiefer Sherwood kind of player. Maybe Nashville. Ryan O'Reilly's in year 3 of 4, but has he really done anything that you'd want him or want to give anything up for him? And it sounded like there were rumors Pierre LeBrun was talking that Trotz wants like a first rounder and a prospect. No thanks on that deal. Luke Evangelista might be the person. He's in year 1 of 2 at only $3 million. He'd be someone good to slot in on the right wing, but no one's really at a spot of leverage right now. But it does allow teams to start contemplating, all right, would we want something? How might we be open for business? Don't know what the Rangers might do. Don't know what Drury would do yet. Maybe he could pick one player if they're so inclined. I would think some of that might come with getting rid of a Shiri or a Radish, which they really haven't done much, if anything at all. Radish scored early, but hasn't scored in quite a few games and is down on the fourth line. Shiri has his place and is a stopgap, but you could certainly find better. We know the familial relations there with Mike Sullivan. So start thinking about it. March 6th is the trade deadline. Obviously, the Panarin situation hangs over this franchise. What's Drury going to do with them? Can he get decent value for him to trade him as a rental to a contender? Would you give him a short deal? But I'm getting more and more inclined to say maybe let's get Gabe back up here and keep Berard and see what some of the younger kids can do. Do we live with the Scott Morrow's mistakes to have him in the lineup? Teams are starting to think that way as we cross the Thanksgiving threshold. Interesting to see your thoughts. Interested to see what Chris Drury does. And we'll start to narrow it down as we go through some of the performances over these next 12 days. So it should be an interesting stretch. 7 games in 12 days. Starts with Carolina this evening. I'll have the recap and everything for you on Thursday as we look ahead to the post-Thanksgiving Bruins-Tampa back-to-back. Thanks for watching Rangers Daily. Again, please subscribe, tell your friends, ring the bell for when we post new episodes. Give me a thumbs up, leave your comments, questions. I'll have plenty of time to answer some of the commenter mail as we go through these next couple of weeks. So I appreciate everything you write and getting to learn sort of how your fandom works out as well. So again, thanks for watching Rangers Daily. I'm Todd Werwa, and I'll see you next time.